Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
The restaurant was her choice. That, in itself, was telling. A high-end, modern bistro with a view of the city skyline. One of those places designed to make you feel important just by being seated. The kind of place we use to celebrate special occasions. Anniversaries, promotions, moments that mattered. Tonight, she thought she was about to turn this place into the setting of her ultimate victory. She had dressed for the occasion, too. A sleek, wine-colored dress hugged her figure, perfectly tailored to emphasize the parts of her body she once flaunted only for me. The way her hair cascaded over her shoulders, the subtle way she tapped her nails against her wine glass, it was all calculated. Everything about her demeanor screamed confidence. And yet, I saw nervous energy underneath it all. Not the fear of what she was about to do, but the kind of thrill that came from someone believing they held an unbreakable hand. She was waiting for the moment to strike. I let her have her moment. We made small talk, though I could tell her mind wasn't really on the conversation. She smiled, she laughed at all the right places, but her eyes were elsewhere. On him, maybe, or on the vision of her new life without me. I watched the way she sipped her wine, how she leaned back in her chair, rolling her shoulders slightly like she was settling into the moment. And then, she made her move. She set her silverware down with a soft clink, folded her hands neatly in front of her, and exhaled deeply, a deliberate, practiced breath. She had rehearsed this, probably in front of a mirror. Maybe she had even run through it with him. "I'm leaving you." It wasn't emotional. It wasn't dramatic. It was calm, cold, absolute. She let the words hang between us, watching me closely. I didn't react immediately. Instead, I took my time, lifting my wine glass and taking a slow sip, letting the silence stretch long enough to make her uncomfortable. Then, I smiled. A small, knowing smile, just enough to make her confidence falter. Her brows knitted together for the briefest second before she quickly masked it. But I saw it. The crack in her armor. "Did you hear me?" she pressed, her voice just a touch sharper. Not the cool, collected detachment she had planned. I nodded, swirling the wine in my glass, watching the deep red liquid catch the candlelight. Loud and clear. She didn't expect that. She was prepared for anger. For heartbreak. Maybe even for me to beg. But this? Then she trailed off, unsure of what to say next. I let the silence stretch again before finally leaning forward, resting my elbows on the table. I wanted her to feel the shift. "I'm glad you finally said it." Her eyes narrowed slightly. There. Another flicker of doubt. "What do you mean?" I exhaled as if relieved, shaking my head slightly before sitting back in my chair, my smirk widening just a little. "It means the best part of dinner is yet to come." For the first time since she spoke, she looked genuinely confused. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice quieter now, cautious. I didn't answer. Instead, I glanced casually toward the restaurant entrance, just as the door swung open. Her gaze followed mine, and then her face dropped. Gone was the confidence. The carefully rehearsed breakup speech, the practiced breathing, the sense of control. Because standing there, walking toward our table with a leather briefcase in hand, was my lawyer. The game had officially begun. The color drained from her face the moment she saw him. I watched as her fingers twitched slightly, tightening around the stem of her wine glass. Her carefully constructed mask of confidence was beginning to slip, but she forced herself to recover, straightening her posture, tilting her chin up in defiance. Her eyes darted from me to the man now approaching our table, a tall, well-dressed professional in a sharp navy suit, his leather briefcase held firmly in one hand. His polished shoes clicked against the marble floor, a rhythmic reminder that her perfect evening was about to take a drastic turn. I sipped my wine, feigning casual interest. I wanted her to feel it. The shift. The moment she realized she had walked into a trap. "What is he doing here?" she asked, her voice strained but controlled. I didn't answer. Instead, I let him do the talking. The lawyer stopped at the edge of our table, offering a polite but formal nod in my direction before shifting his gaze to her. "Mrs. Bennett," he said smoothly, his tone professional yet detached. "I apologize for the interruption, but I was instructed to deliver these documents to you personally at this precise moment." Her eyes flicked down to the thick stack of papers he placed on the table between us. Legal documents. I could almost hear her heartbeat quicken. What is this?" she stammered, her fingers hesitating before reaching for the top page. I leaned back, savoring the moment. This was what I had been waiting for. "That, my dear," I said, lifting my glass in a mock toast, "is your freedom." She glared at me before snapping her attention back to the lawyer. "I don't understand. What is this?" The lawyer, always professional, adjusted his glasses, and spoke with the same measured tone. "Your husband has already filed for divorce," he said simply. "These are the official documents. You are free to review them, but I strongly recommend you have legal counsel present before signing anything." Silence. I watched her swallow, the muscles in her throat tightening. Her hands trembled slightly as she flipped through the pages, her breath catching as she skimmed over the contents. She didn't just recognize the words, she understood them. This can't be right," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "Oh, it's very right," I said, enjoying the way her composure was slipping away with each passing second. She lifted her gaze, her eyes narrowing at me. "You knew." I let the smirk creep onto my face, taking my time before answering. "I've known for months," I admitted. "I just wanted to let you think you were in control for a little longer." Her nostrils flared, her knuckles turning white as she gripped the papers harder. "You bastard." The lawyer cleared his throat, unfazed by the rising tension. "To clarify," he continued, "this is not a standard divorce filing. Given the state's laws regarding infidelity and the nature of the evidence provided, your husband is within his rights to request an unfavorable settlement on your behalf." Her eyes snapped to his. "What evidence?" she demanded. The lawyer reached into his briefcase and pulled out another folder. He opened it, turning it around to face her. Inside were printed photos, screenshots of texts, receipts, hotel check-ins. Cold, hard proof. Her affair laid out in black and white. She inhaled sharply, her body going rigid as she stared at the evidence. I took a leisurely sip of my wine. "You didn't actually think I was stupid, did you?" I asked, tilting my head slightly. "You thought you could blindside me, drop your little, 'I'm leaving you' speech, and walk away on your terms? No, sweetheart. If you're leaving me, it's going to be on my terms." She blinked rapidly, her jaw tightening. "This isn't fair," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. I let out a small chuckle. "Fair? You want to talk about fair? You've been screwing another man behind my back for months, spending my money on your little getaways, and now that you've been caught, you want to cry about fairness." She flinched. For the first time that evening, she had no words. The lawyer, maintaining his professional detachment, tapped the documents lightly. "You may take your time reviewing the terms, Mrs. Bennett," he said. "But as of today, your husband has officially filed. There's no going back." Her hands trembled as she gripped the documents. She turned to me, her voice shaking. "You planned this." I gave her a slow nod, down to the very last detail. Her breath hitched, realization crashing down on her all at once. She had walked into this dinner thinking she was the one in control. Now, she was leaving it with her entire world unraveling around her. And we weren't even finished yet. The pages in her hand shook ever so slightly. I watched her scan the documents, her eyes darting frantically from one line to the next. The restaurant, once filled with the quiet hum of conversation and the soft clinking of silverware, now seemed unbearably loud. The chatter of nearby diners blurred into the background as she struggled to process what she was reading. Her breathing was shallow, her knuckles white. And then, she froze. I saw the exact moment she landed on the financial section. The moment she realized just how much she was losing. This is ridiculous," she whispered, shaking her head as if denying reality could make it change. "There's no way." "Oh, but there is," my lawyer interjected, flipping to the key section and tapping it with his well-manicured finger. "Thanks to the infidelity clause in your prenuptial agreement, your husband is legally entitled to protect all marital assets from you." She snapped her head up so fast I thought she might strain her neck. "Prenup?" she repeated, her voice shrill now. I sipped my wine, completely unfazed. "You signed it. You don't remember?" Of course, she didn't. She had been too blinded by love, too confident in her own security to care about the fine print. Back then, I had insisted on the prenup, not because I ever thought I'd need it, but because I had worked too damn hard to build my career from the ground up. I never imagined she'd betray me, but I wasn't naive enough to dismiss the possibility. And now? That little document had become my greatest weapon. She flipped back through the pages frantically, her eyes wild. No, this isn't right." She turned to the lawyer, desperation creeping into her voice. "There has to be some mistake." He simply adjusted his glasses. "There is no mistake, Mrs. Bennett. Your prenuptial agreement states that in the case of infidelity, you forfeit all claims to spousal support, shared assets, and any business holdings under your husband's name." Her breath hitched. But we have joint accounts." I chuckled, shaking my head. "Not anymore." Her mouth parted slightly as I reached into my pocket and pulled out another document. one she hadn't seen yet. With deliberate slowness, I slid it across the table toward her. "This," I said, watching as her hands hovered over it, "is the formal notice that all our joint bank accounts were dissolved 2 days ago." Her hands clenched into fists. "You did this before even telling me?" I shrugged. "I had to make sure you didn't drain the accounts before I served you. I learned from the best, after all." The jab landed. She knew exactly what I was implying, how she had been taking my money for months, using it to fund her secret hotel stays and fancy outings with her affair partner. Her affair partner. Oh, that was the next delicious part. As if on cue, my lawyer pulled another folder from his briefcase and slid it across the table. "And speaking of financial matters," he said smoothly, "your affair partner, Mr. Jason Reynolds, has also been formally notified that you will no longer be financially supporting his lifestyle." She looked at him in horror. "What?" I sighed dramatically. "Oh, you didn't think I knew about that part, did you?" Her face drained of color. "See, I was willing to accept the typical betrayal," I continued, enjoying how she was starting to unravel. "But what really pissed me off was that you were using my money to bankroll his life. Dinners, hotel rooms, even that little car he's been driving." She let out a shaky breath. I leaned in slightly, my voice dropping to a whisper. "Tell me, does he know you've just been cut off?" Her breathing stalled, and I knew in that moment she realized something truly terrifying. She had left her entire financial future in my hands, and now it was gone. She wasn't just losing me. She was losing her cushy lifestyle. The security, the stability, the money. And when her affair partner found out, oh, that was going to be a beautiful disaster. She had nothing now. No husband. No financial support. No exit plan. And I had everything. She inhaled sharply, trying to regain some kind of control. "I'll fight this," she hissed, her voice trembling. "I'll take you to court, and I'll make sure you—" The lawyer cleared his throat, cutting her off effortlessly. "Mrs. Bennett, you are more than welcome to challenge the terms," he said smoothly. "However, given the overwhelming evidence of your infidelity and financial misconduct, I must warn you." He leaned in slightly, just enough to make her feel cornered. "If this goes to trial, the court will favor your husband." Silence. A deep, suffocating silence as the reality of her situation crushed her completely. She swallowed hard, blinking rapidly as she struggled to find an escape, an excuse, a way out. There wasn't one. She had lost. Completely. She sat frozen, her hands gripping the edges of the divorce papers as if she could somehow force reality to change just by holding on tight enough. But there was no escaping this. Her mouth opened, then closed. She tried to form words, tried to muster that sharp, cutting tone she so often used when she wanted to put me down, manipulate a situation to her favor. But the power had shifted, and she knew it. I let the silence stretch, watching as she tried to think of a way out. She had nothing. Her affair had been exposed. Her financial lifeline had been severed. The prenuptial agreement ensured she walked away with nothing. And now, the next phase of my plan would utterly destroy any last illusion of hope she had left. She clenched her jaw, her breath shaky as she tried to latch onto anger. "You think you've won?" she hissed, her eyes blazing. "You think I won't fight this?" I smirked, swirling the last bit of wine in my glass before setting it down. "Oh, I know you'll fight," I said smoothly. "But what you don't seem to understand, sweetheart, is that you don't have a single thing left to fight with." She glared at me, opening her mouth to fire back. And that's when my phone buzzed. Perfect timing. I pulled it from my pocket, turned the screen toward her, and watched her entire body go rigid. Because there, on the screen, was his name. Her affair partner. Calling me. She snapped her head up to me, her face draining of all color. "Why is he calling you?" she whispered, voice barely holding together. I took my time answering, letting her sit in that uncertainty for just a little longer. Then, I answered on speaker. "Hey, Jason," I said, my tone casual. "I was just about to call you. What's up?" For a second, there was nothing but silence. Then, his voice came through. "What the hell is going on?" My wife flinched. She just called me, freaking out, saying something about a divorce, about losing everything. "What the hell did you do?" he demanded. I chuckled. "Me," I said, leaning back lazily in my chair. "Oh no, buddy. She did this to herself. All I did was make sure the consequences landed exactly where they belonged." Silence. Then, his voice lowered. "Wait, so she really has nothing?" My wife's eyes widened. She sat up, like a drowning woman grasping for something to hold on to. "Baby," she blurted out, leaning toward the phone. "Baby, Don't listen to him. Shut up, Samantha, he snapped. And just like that, I saw it hit her. The moment she realized that the man she betrayed me for wasn't going to save her. She sat back, her hands dropping to her lap, her breathing shallow. Because for all her big talk about leaving me for him, about finding someone better, she never actually thought she'd have to rely on him. But now she had no choice. And he wasn't interested. So let me get this straight, her affair partner continued, voice hard now. She's broke? No money, no house, no car? Nothing? I smiled. That's right, I said. More silence. Then, I can't do this, man. The words crushed her. What? She croaked, her voice hoarse. Baby, what do you mean? We canoe. I mean I can't do this, he snapped, exasperated now. I thought we were just having fun. I didn't sign up to take care of you. I watched as she physically recoiled. This was it. This was the moment she realized she had lost everything. Baby, please, she pleaded, her voice shaking. We can figure this out together. I left him for you. No, he interrupted. You left him because you thought you'd be taken care of. I'm not your damn safety net, Samantha. I don't need this drama. My lawyer smirked, clearly enjoying this as much as I was. She let out a shaky breath, her hands gripping the table. I lose my number, he cut her off. And then, click. The call ended. The silence that followed was deafening. She sat there, completely motionless, her eyes locked on the phone screen as if she could somehow will him to call back. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. I bet you didn't rehearse for that part, did you? I said, watching her slowly come undone. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Because now, there was nothing left. No escape. No lover to run to. No money to start over. Just her, alone in the mess she created. I took a deep breath, savoring the moment, then casually waved at the lawyer. I think that about wraps things up, I said. He nodded, standing from his chair and gathering the remaining paperwork. Mrs. Bennett, he said, his voice smooth, professional, you have 30 days to vacate the marital home. Should you require assistance with the moving process, we can arrange for transportation, though. I'm afraid it will be at your expense. She sucked in a sharp breath, blinking rapidly, her hands clenching into fists. I smiled. Don't worry, I said, standing up from my chair, reaching into my pocket. I pulled out my wedding ring, the one I had worn for years, the one I had once thought symbolized a lifetime commitment. I tossed it onto the table in front of her. You wanted your freedom? I said, watching as she stared at the ring, hollow and broken. Now you have it. And with that, I turned on my heel and walked out of her life for good. I stepped outside, inhaling the crisp evening air as I adjusted my cufflinks. The restaurant behind me hummed with soft chatter, the distant clinking of glasses and silverware filling the night. But inside, at that table we once shared, my now ex-wife sat in stunned silence, staring at the divorce papers, the ring, and the remnants of her shattered life. She had walked into this dinner thinking she was in control. Now, she had nothing. Not a home. Not financial security. Not even the affair partner she had risked it all for. And me? I had everything. I had just reached the valet stand when I heard rapid footsteps behind me. Wait. I smirked before I even turned around. Right on cue. She stood there, still in her expensive wine-colored dress, but now she didn't look like the composed, self-assured woman who sat across from me at dinner. No. She looked panicked. Desperate. Like someone who had realized she had made the biggest mistake of her life. We need to talk, she said, breathless. I tucked my hands into my pockets, tilting my head slightly. Talk? I repeated. I think we covered everything back there. Please, she stopped, inhaled sharply, then switched tactics. We can fix this. I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. Fix this. I echoed. She nodded quickly, stepping closer. I know I messed up. I got caught up in something stupid, but we have years together, and I made a mistake. It didn't mean anything. I raised a brow. Didn't mean anything? I scoffed. So you threw away our marriage for something meaningless? You lied, cheated, stole from me, and now you're expecting me to believe you suddenly regret it. Her eyes darted downward, guilt flickering across her face. I do, she whispered. It was almost convincing. Almost. I let the silence linger between us for a long moment before finally speaking. Let me ask you something, I said, stepping forward until there was barely a foot between us. Her breath hitched slightly at the proximity, thinking she had gotten through to me. She hadn't. If I hadn't caught you, if I hadn't filed first, taken everything before you could take it from me, would you still be standing here? begging me to fix this? Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I nodded, stepping back. That's what I thought. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away before she could touch me. Please, she tried again. I'll do anything to make this right. I exhaled slowly. You want to do something for me? She nodded eagerly. Asterisk, then accept that you lost. Her face crumpled. And that was the moment she realized. There was no salvaging this. No second chance. No bargaining. No power left to manipulate. She was completely, utterly alone. And I was free. I turned, just as the valet pulled up with my car. Goodbye, Samantha, I said, opening the door. The last thing I saw before I drove away was her face, devastated, broken, watching me disappear from her life forever. You see, for me, this wasn't just about winning the divorce. No, this was about taking back everything she had stolen from me. And so, as I pulled into my driveway, my house now, not ours, I pulled out my phone and sent one last message. To her family. To our mutual friends. To anyone who had ever looked at us and thought we were the perfect couple. A simple message. For those of you who ever wondered why we divorced, here's the answer. And attached? The folder of evidence. Her texts. Her hotel bookings. Her financial transactions, money she took from our joint accounts and funneled into her affair. Her own confession, recorded. Then, with a final smirk, I turned off my phone, poured myself a drink, and stepped out onto my balcony. I had just burned her entire world to the ground. And now? Now, I was going to enjoy watching her try to survive the ashes.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.